to view myself from a different lens. I no longer felt safe in the world, and I was always afraid of judgment, and I was afraid of being alone, which then wound up being the catalyst for the choices that I made in the rest of my life.
When life's visible and hidden battles make you doubt that peace, love, and full-on living are possible, We Win Within brings the proof. Guests crack open their great stories that may overlap with what each of us carries, sharing raw truths, hard-won discoveries, and triumphs that illuminate the road for us all. I'm Hindy Stegman, daughter of Holocaust survivors, speaker, coach, and fellow journeyer in life, inviting you to listen, look inside, and claim the champion already rising in your heart. So, hi, everybody. This is Hindy Stegman, and I'm your host for the We Win Within podcast. And today you're in for an amazing treat. We have a wonderful woman, Bonnie Sharf, who's going to take us on her journey, and it's quite the journey. And of course, as always, we start with our childhood, because without looking back into our childhood, we need that journey, a roadmap to how we got to where we are today. So Bonnie, take it away. Tell us where you want to start.
Sure. First, I want to say hello, everyone, and thank you so much, Hindy, for having me on your podcast. I feel so blessed. Boy, talking about my childhood, there's so much. So I'm just trying to decide which parts to share. My childhood was definitely not perfect at all in any sense. I had a lot of trauma, the big T's and the little T's. So I grew up in a household, a Jewish household in Massapequa, Long Island, New York. And my parents got divorced when I was only 7. During the time that they were married, I witnessed really volatile fighting and some really scary situations where I was thinking about it recently, because I do believe that we all are conditioned, as we all know, from our childhood. And it did leave a lot of fear within my nervous system, because the things that I heard really caused a lot of fear within me. And then when they did get divorced, we were living in my household with my mom, my 2 sisters, and I'm the middle. And my mom, it was just a very turbulent household. There was fighting every day, every day. There were times when I was only in first grade. I remember leaving my household while I was screaming. We were in the middle of a fight and I was screaming at her, running out the door to go to school. So it was that kind of an upbringing, and it didn't change throughout. It just got more turbulent as I got older. And then the most traumatic time during my childhood was I had a group of girlfriends that I considered my family because we grew up together. 3 of them lived right on my block, and I played with 2 of them when I was only in preschool and kindergarten. And we grew up together since we were babies. And then we met a couple of the other girls when we were in elementary school, and I shared everything with them. I was always on the phone with them and sleeping over each other's houses, and I trusted them implicitly. Well, when I was in middle school, I wound up having to have leg length surgery. I had one leg 3/4 of an inch longer than the other one, and I had surgery, and I was out of school for a couple of months. And when I returned to school, even being out of school one day, sometimes we're nervous to return because we never know what to expect, what we missed. And when I returned, I sensed that there was something off. And I didn't know what it was, but I just felt this energy that was different around my friends. And at first I thought I was paranoid because I kept thinking they were talking about me, or when I would speak, I would look because I would feel like they were making faces at each other about me, but I never saw anything. And then it wound up coming out where they really were. And we were on our way to a field trip in New York City on the Long Island Railroad. We were going to see the Broadway play Evita. And while we were on the train, one of my friends, my close friends, who was a couple of rows up from me, she asked me if I wanted a piece of gum. And I said, sure. So she passed it back and it was already been chewed gum. And she thought it was hysterical. And all the other kids around who saw it happen was laughing hysterical. And from that moment on, my life was living hell.
So, if you could give one word that comes to mind for the feeling that you were carrying, that you were holding based on your friends doing that to you, what would it be, you think?
After I found out or before?
After.
Oh, betrayal. Shock.
Betrayal.
Yes.
Yes.
Shock.
So
I
let's
just,
look at betrayal for a second.
hmm
Is betrayal something that has stayed with you,
no,
come up in your life?
no, I haven't been betrayed. However, it also did, as I continue with the story, it wound up causing me to live in a state of anxiety every single day because my friends were in all of my classes. We arranged it that way intentionally. So every single day I went to school, in every single one of my classes, I was constantly ridiculed. I was bullied by them. I was constantly made fun of every single thing I did. The way I did my hair, the way I did my makeup, the clothes I wore, even when I was biting my nails because I was so nervous, they would make fun of that. And they would do things to my locker. I would go to my locker and all of my papers were out of my notebooks. They had put ink all over my locker at one time. I mean, like really horrible things. So I was living in a state of constant anxiety, begging my mother every day. I would cry at home to move away. And so that in itself caused me to live the rest of my life in fear of judgment and in fear of being alone. I always felt like I needed a partner in life in order to feel safe.
So, did you find any place where you could go for your, or anyone you could be with for your nervous system to relax? Or did you even realize that that anxiety was affecting your nervous system constantly?
At that point in time, I didn't know that there was a term for it. I just knew that I was going through hell and I was living my life constantly living in anxiety and nervousness. And the only place that I had was when I was home with my family and I would talk about it. Um, and then what made the shift is when one of either my, really both my dad and my older sister was saying to me, you just have to ignore them. You can't let them get to you. Now, of course, that's easy to say, but not to do. However, I still managed to do my best. And when I started to not let their ridicule and my worry about what they were going to do next interfere with my being present, I then started to make new friends. And as soon as it appeared that they weren't getting to me, that's when they then came over and apologized and told me they were
Wow.
sorry. Now, of course, it was what I had dreamed of hearing, that they came to me and apologized and said they want to be my friend and that I never did anything wrong and that they were just jealous or whatever it was. And even though a part of me was like, no, I shouldn't be their friend, I wanted to because it felt comfortable and it felt safe. I never fully trusted them again, but I did wind up being their friend again. And I did still continue to maintain my other friends that I met. But that was a significant point in my life where it conditioned me to view myself from a different lens. I no longer felt safe in the world. And I was always afraid of judgment and I was afraid of being alone, which then wound up being the catalyst for the choices that I made in the rest of my life.
So the pattern was set at that stage. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. Hmm.
Okay, so what happened then? How did that pattern continue for you?
Well, the pattern continued because I entered into relationships with men. I was a serial monogamist, basically. I would meet a man, and if I got received the attention that felt really good to my ego, and I was, of course, attracted in some way to them, then I would think, oh, this is the right man for me. And I wasn't discerning because I just felt like I need to be with someone to feel safe. So I wound up developing a pattern of being in long-term relationships, getting married, and then recognizing after I had been with this person that this is not aligned with who I am. And at that point, it was really because I didn't even really know who I was yet. I had not given myself any time to be alone in my entire adult life. So I had a pattern of continuing to get married to someone and then years later realizing they weren't the right one and getting a divorce. And so I've been married multiple times, and ever since now can we move forward to my health challenge?
Wherever you want to go, it's your
Okay.
story.
Because my health challenge, even though as we both met doing Tony Robbins, and I was a crew member and I did the events, I went to Date with Destiny, and I did develop a higher level of motivation and knowing that we're all capable of achieving our life's dreams, I was still unconscious. I was still identifying with the program of who I thought that I was. I was still living in this dysregulated nervous system, and I was still repeating that pattern of being married to different people and thinking they were the right one each time, and then realizing that they weren't. And so when my health challenge happened, which was a shock. I was already a health coach at that time. I was already the one out there doing fitness videos and sharing with people how to prevent disease and illness by maintaining their health and eating the right foods and taking care of their bodies. And then all of a sudden, suddenly I wound up developing this autoimmune condition that caused paralysis in my legs and my feet. I wasn't able to walk unassisted. There were times I couldn't even stand on my legs. My legs weren't strong enough to hold my weight. And I wasn't able to feel my feet or wiggle my toes, lift my leg even an inch off the bed. And it was so scary. I was told that there was no cure and that this was going to be my life now. And that's when I discovered Dr. Joe Dispenza, and I immersed myself in doing that work. Now, I do believe that that was my greatest gift, that happened for me. And that's where Tony's words came in, because before I even knew about Dr. Joe, when I was first going through this health challenge, I kept hearing Tony's words in my mind saying that everything that happens in life is not happening to you, it's happening for you. And I kept repeating that over and over again. I said, I know this is happening for me. I am open to receive the lessons that it's here to teach me. I know that it's here to teach me a very important lesson, and I'm just going to stay open to receive it. And then I was introduced to Dr. Joe.
Introduced to him. Were you looking for something to help you? Did somebody come to you and say, hey, I think this would be really good for you? Because there's angels all over the place. Sometimes they come to us, but we're not open to hearing them. So how
Yes,
did that happen?
as a matter of fact, it was one of our probably mutual Tony Robbins friends. Do you know Rocky?
Yes,
Right. So he's the one. I think Rocky Adams, is that his last name? I don't remember his last name just off the bat.
I think
But
you're right.
yes, but Rocky is the one. He's responsible for leading me to Dr. Joe Dispenza, because I had been posting on Facebook, sharing my journey when I was back and forth in the hospital 6 times. I kept relapsing, and each time it kept getting worse and worse. And Rocky reached out to me and he said, hey, have you ever heard of this guy? And he sent me one of his interviews on YouTube. And I said, no, I never heard of him before. And he said, check out these interviews. And he sent me 2 of them. And as soon as I heard Dr. Joe speak, I knew this is what I'm meant to learn.
So what was it? What was it when you say I did the work? Well, that could be many, many, many things. So
Yes.
tell us about your journey then.
Yes. Well, as soon as I heard Dr. Joe talk about how our thoughts create our emotions, and our thoughts and emotions are our state of being, and that it's our state of being that creates the electromagnetic signature, the frequency that we're emanating in this world and within our body, and that our thoughts make us sick. And so he says if our thoughts can make us sick, our thoughts can make us well too. And as soon as I heard that, that was it for me. I knew that this is what I need to do. This is how I'm going to heal myself.
So did you have a lot of negative thoughts, a lot of negative inward self-talk?
Yes, and it stemmed from my childhood. And so that's what brought me to the knowing that I have been viewing myself all this time through this lens of not being enough and seeing myself that way. And then projecting myself that way and making my life's decisions that way. In fact, once we start doing the inner work, is what I'm referring to, is instead of putting our attention on the outer world and what everything means according to what our program is telling us, how we've been conditioned, bringing ourselves to within and discovering that we're actually reacting to things because of our subjective beliefs. And then starting to question those, like, is this really true? Do I really have to believe this about myself? And as I started doing that work, it started becoming more and more clear to me that I had been living in this state of not enoughness and fear of judgment and needing to be in a partnership. And all of those things were keeping me living small.
Well, so many people, let's be honest. We're not smart enough. We're not skinny enough. We're not pretty enough, especially as women. Maybe
Yeah.
men too take on all these enoughs. But I think as women, we tend to beat ourselves up more
Mm-hmm.
with all the enoughs.
Yeah.
So many of us carry that. And it listening to you, you make it sound so simple. Well, I just decided that,
Mm. No,
I'm
it's
enough
definitely not simple.
or whatever. So, whoo, hocus pocus. Let's
Yeah.
see. How does it work?
No, it's definitely not simple, and it's not easy, and it's not fun. In fact, I say to all of my clients, this work is not for the faint of heart because it does require us to face our demons, or the fire. We have to go through the fire. The only way with to get out is to go through. And so I had to face, and it wasn't easy and it wasn't a short lived thing because I'm still doing it. It's a never ending journey. That was just the catalyst that caused me to awaken on a deeper level. And now that's how I live my life. So even today, I'm still waking up and experiencing new awarenesses and new insights about how I've been viewing the world and the meaning that I've assigned to things and the triggers. So it's not only the raising our consciousness, I call it consciousness captivity. That's actually the term that I've created for the root cause for all of it. And yes, you're right that most of us, especially women, are constantly judging ourselves or critical of ourselves or comparing ourselves to others. And yet, that's only one piece of the puzzle because what we have experienced previously in our life that has caused the trauma, whether it's a big T or a little t, because many people don't really acknowledge the little t. And, if you've been brought up in a household where you weren't given the value, you weren't made to feel like you were important, and you weren't receive the love, you didn't receive the love that is needed, then you might have been traumatized without realizing it. That you see yourself in this very narrow lens of that I have to people please in order to be accepted, or I have to do everything perfect in order to be enough. And all of that is one part of the solution in order to become a new version of ourselves and create a new reality. But the other piece is our nervous system. And we need to address both because we can be understanding all the concepts, and we can intellectually be aware of our program. But if we're still reacting, if our body is still reacting to when someone uses a certain tone with us, or whether we don't get accepted to something, or someone starts a problem with us, or our symptoms start to flare, and we immediately go to this place of reaction, our body doesn't know the difference between a thought that is real and a thought that isn't. That, for instance, when we're thinking of worst case scenarios, if we have a symptom and we start having these thoughts about, oh my gosh, I wonder what this means. I wonder if it's getting worse. I wonder if I'm going to turn out like that person who wound up not being able to use her hands at all or use her legs at all. And all of those thoughts create that emotion of fear in the body. And the body doesn't know the difference between a real experience and our thoughts about that experience. So it reacts the same way. And then it winds up causing more inflammation in the body. And I can go down that rabbit hole, but I know we don't have enough time for all of that.
So first of all, we all experience these things. As long as you're human, there are good days and not so good days. There are things that happen to us, right? And yes, it's important. So if you feel, I say we have to be a warrior for ourselves every single day. When you're feeling off a little bit. You may not have that aha moment, I know why, or the realization, but something is off.
Mm-hmm.
So what are some of the tools that you have in your toolbox that you can suggest to people when they are either, going off on some, new soap opera they're creating in their heads, or their body is just not reacting the way they want? Can you
Yes.
give us an idea of just some simple things?
Absolutely. So, first, the most important thing is being aware of it. Not just being aware that, oh, I'm feeling triggered right now, or I'm feeling really down on myself right now, but because most of us aren't aware of it, we just accept it as being who we are, and that this is just life, this is just who we are. And when we have the awareness that I don't have to continue to repeat this reaction to the way that I'm feeling right now. I don't have to just go down this rabbit hole of feeling depressed or feeling not good enough or feeling fearful. Instead, this can be serving me as an invitation to choose something else, to respond differently to it. Because our mind, just because we have thoughts come into our mind, which happens to be involuntary, we're not doing it ourselves. It's just the thoughts come in, just like the blood flows, and just like the breath comes into our body without our conscious awareness. The thoughts are coming in, and it's coming from that place of fear or not enoughness or whatever your subconscious program is. So when you start to recognize, I don't have to believe everything that I'm thinking, and when you realize that you're in a low vibration emotion, which is any emotion that doesn't feel good, whether it be anger or jealousy or resentment or blame or guilt or regret or anger or frustration or fear, all of the emotions that don't feel good are a signal that we are giving our power to the mind. So as soon as we have that awareness that, oh, I'm feeling this emotion, I don't have to continue to just go let it identify who I'm being, because that's what we do. We identify with it. Instead, I'm going to let it serve me as an invitation to change who I'm being. And at that moment of awareness that you realize you have a choice, then I am a total believer in the power of the breath, because we always have the breath with us. It's free. We don't have to remember to take it with us. It's with us wherever we go, and we can do it anywhere. Even if we're in a crowded, even if we're standing on stage, right? Doesn't matter where we are or who we're talking to or what we're doing. We can always take a conscious breath. And that's why I actually did become a certified breathwork facilitator, because I'm so passionate about the breath. And it helps us to move that stuck energy, that trauma has caused in our body. So in that moment that we're realizing that we're living in this low vibration a moment for whatever reason, whatever the trigger, it could have just been a thought in our minds, or it could have been something that happened in our life and our circumstances. We can then take a conscious breath by putting all of our attention on the act of taking that breath. And as we're taking it in through the nose, there's different breathwork styles that are really beneficial and valuable. But if you start out just by taking a conscious breath, you can even put your attention on focusing on the breath being like a beam of light as you're inhaling, feeling into how that feels, if the coolness as it's coming into your nostrils, how it feels as it's going down your throat, at the same time that you're breathing in and imagining a beam of light coming up through your body. You're taking your attention off of the mind. You're no longer focusing on those thoughts, on that narrative that's continuing to be fed to you, that's causing even more of a loop of that fearful emotion or whatever that emotion is, because that's how it works. We tend to have a reaction to something, then the mind feeds us even more thoughts that cause even more of a reaction, and that causes more thoughts. So to break free from that, to get off that roller coaster by bringing our attention to the present moment, by using our breath, we're taking our attention off of the mind, and it's creating that space so that now we're no longer identifying with our thoughts. Now we're in our body. We're putting our attention into the body. And at that moment, we can bring ourselves to a place of calm. And I'm not saying it's immediate, because sometimes it takes a while even when we're present. But by practicing the breath, keeping our attention on the present moment, and bringing our body to a place of calm, from that place, we can then consciously say, what was causing me to feel triggered? Oh, it was because I just felt this symptom in my body. Well, what was causing me to react to it? Oh, it was because my mind was telling me that it means that I'm getting worse. Does that have to be true? Or could it mean something else? Could it mean that it's just a message my body is feeding me in order to awaken me, in order to invite me to a deeper level, a deeper layer of being?
Bonnie, it all sounds really great. And my experience with people has been that their daily life, it becomes a pattern.
Mm-hmm.
Pain becomes a pattern, suffering becomes a pattern. And they don't have the awareness even that they're in that pattern. It's just life sucks. So they feel yucky, right? Does everybody have to hit rock bottom? Do they have to really, end up in the hospital in order to make a drastic life change? Because I find too often people say, oh, well, I'd like to, but they're not really serious because their pain body, they haven't felt the pain yet.
Yeah.
How do we help them?
That's a great question, Hindy. And it is unfortunate that most people do wait for something to happen that really causes them to feel like the floor has just been ripped out from under them. Because that's the feeling of
Yeah.
what I experienced and what many have experienced. However, we don't have to wait for that. The reason why it winds up happening, we don't do it until that happens, is because we're afraid of change. We're afraid of the unknown. We'd rather just, even if we're unhappy in our lives, even if we're continuing to repeat those same patterns, and that's why I'm so grateful for my health challenge, because I was aware I was repeating patterns. I was trying to do the work, but nothing was really waking me up. And the reason why most people wait for that is because it feels scary. It's a lot of work. We also have the mind telling us, oh, well, what do you think you're going to do? You're going to change. You've tried so many times, But until you have something happen in your life that really forces you to go within because it's unbearable, the idea of nothing changing. You feel like your life can't continue this way. And there are some times where it really isn't going to continue if you don't go within. So it's the going within and the discovering, and we don't have to wait at all. It's just that the majority of people aren't willing to do it or don't have the impetus to do that work because it does take diligence, it takes practice. And when we're totally unconscious because we're identifying with our mind and we're believing everything the mind is feeding us, then we're not even aware that there's another way, that there's some other life available to us. So,
I think languaging is so important.
mhm.
We start at a whatever age talking to ourselves. I'm so stupid. You do something and you say to yourself, you're so stupid. Why did you do that? How many times do you say you're so stupid or you're so this or you're so and that becomes your persona.
Mhm.
It becomes your persona. So I think even if you catch yourself with what is a pattern, what word do I use again and again to describe something about myself? One word.
You're asking me what word you should use?
No, I'm just saying in general, I find that I think, sometimes we look at a big picture
Mhm.
and there's all this work that has to be done.
Mhm.
Breathing is something that goes with is non-negotiable almost because it's so simple and you can do it anywhere. But I think starting to be aware of the languaging that we speak, just the languaging, the words that we use, and then you say, "Oh, I say that a lot to myself." Hmm.
Hmm. Yes. Well, first, let me just clarify something. We all have been breathing since we were born. So we can look at it from that perspective of we do it anyway. But there's a very different aspect to breathing when you're doing it consciously. And you would be so surprised at the transformations that happen when you apply breath in a very conscious way, especially during the times that, for instance, the type of breath work that I do, it creates new awarenesses. It creates shifting of energy, movement of old trauma, freeing ourselves. It's actually very healing. So it's a very different experience when you're just breathing without thinking about it and without being consciously aware than you're doing it when you're doing it in a conscious breathwork session. However, what you're referring to is we do identify, we judge ourselves, and we're so used to that habit of the mind feeding us those thoughts. It's the ego, oh, you're so stupid. You should have done that differently. You could have done better. You should be further along than where you are. All of those thoughts are going to continue until we develop the awareness. The awareness is everything because once we become aware of it, then that stops. We don't, not that it's just automatic, but it does stop eventually when you practice no longer giving it your attention, no longer believing it, recognizing it for what it is. Oh, that's just the ego. I'm not really that way. And in fact, I'm going to speak to myself intentionally in a more loving way. As soon as I hear a voice in my head saying, "You're so stupid," I know that it's just the ego trying to keep me safe and keep me stuck where I am, keep its power. But I'm going to choose something different and I'm going to take my power back from that voice in my head. And I'm going to say to myself, that's not true. I am so smart and I am so loved and I am deserving of love just for being who I am. I don't have to measure up. And it's true, we do identify with roles, we identify with personas, we identify with masks. And these are all the things that I teach in my program or help people to become aware of because this is identity shifting work. That's really what this is. We have to
Wow,
shift our identity.
absolutely. As you were talking about the breath, what I was visualizing? Um, a straw. And when we were kids, we could even use a straw to blow bubbles, but you blow out right? You can suck in, but you can also suck out, blow out. So I'm thinking, I'm visualizing as you're talking, using the breath intentionally, that when we breathe out, right,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
we're just releasing, sucking out all that yuck.
It's
And
a
when we're
release.
breathing in,
Mm-hmm. Yes.
right,
Yes. We can choose to envision it that way, that we're breathing in light and we're exhaling fear.
it's as simple, it can be as simple as that too,
Yeah,
right? It doesn't
exactly.
need to be, but the awareness, it's all starts with that awareness, right?
Awareness is everything.
So
Yes.
the people that come to do the work with you, is it
Mhm.
a group thing or is it
Yes.
individuals?
Yes, it's a group thing. And in fact, I just opened up enrollment for my second round. So this is my new program. I have had a program for years that's an immersion in doing this work. It's a 6 month program. And I just opened up a brand new program the beginning of this year called Rewire for Health. And it's only a 4 week program. So it's short and sweet, but oh my goodness, the transformations that my clients who joined that program received were amazing. And I had a feeling because the reason why it's so powerful is because we're meeting twice a week every week on one session or I should say during one session we are focusing on I'm teaching consciousness work and how to shift your perception and how to disidentify from the old identity and becoming aware of how we've been identifying ourselves. And then we also get into our samskaras, which is the conditioned program that we're still reacting to unconsciously. So that's one of the sessions is based on all these lessons and coaching. I don't know if I mentioned I am a nationally board certified health and wellness coach. So I do coaching during the sessions as well. And then the other time we meet every week is doing the embodiment work of the new information that we're, or the new way of being that we are enveloping. And so I do a breathwork session each time we meet that second session every week. So we are moving stuck energy and we are just embodying and integrating all that we're becoming. So even in just that 4 week period of time, I had four of my clients had life changing shifts after doing this work for years and years, some of them decades, with it, going to retreats and doing all the things, meditating daily and not really changing. And in this 4 week period, because it does require both the consciousness work and the nervous system work, when you combine both of them, amazing things happen. So I just opened up the enrollment for round two. We're starting on March 2nd, and right now we're having an early bird special just until February 23rd, but it really is a life-changing experience just in those 4 week periods.
And what are you calling the course again?
It's Rewire for Health.
Rewire. So typically, if somebody is listening to this, and it's beyond that time period, and you're
Mhm.
going to be doing it, do you have after the that event, you have another
Yes.
one scheduled?
Yes, I will be continuing to do them. This is just the beginning.
Beautiful. So if somebody is listening and they're saying, well, I'm not really that sick, or I'm not really that unhappy, I'm just sort of unhappy, or I'm, you know, we want to get them before they have to hit rock bottom, right?
Yes. Well, the thing is, my program is really designed for those who are doing the work already, who are doing the
Oh,
work.
okay.
Yes, who are already doing the work. I mean, of course, newcomers are welcome. Who I'm speaking to when I'm inviting people are those who, because I can totally relate to them, who have already been doing the inner work, have been doing the meditations every day, have maybe even gone to some retreats, and might have had some breakthroughs and feeling like they're making progress, but then when life hits them, when the symptoms flare, or when their conditions continue in their circumstances in their life, they find themselves going back to old patterns and feeling stuck and not seeing the changes in their reality, in their health, and in the, it's not only health conditions, it's mostly, most of the people who come to me are experiencing health challenges, but it really could be used for any challenge in your life, financial, relationship, or just feeling a self-worthiness or discovering your purpose. So for those people who might not be feeling that bad, but if you realize that you're not living your greatest life and that you came here in order to do that, in order to discover who you really are. And whenever we're in that state where we're recognizing that we're not living our greatest path, that's when it's the best time for you to realize, do I have to continue this way? And in fact, I do need to share with you that this is the first time in my life where I am single and I am loving it. I'm not even, in the past, whenever I was single, I was constantly on online dating sites. I was out there looking who's going to be my soulmate, because I've only wanted one person to spend the rest of my life with. But now the one person that I'm so excited about spending time with is myself. And I never had that before. I always was in fear. So I just wanted to share that with you to make sure that I let you know that has been the biggest gift of doing this inner work, is recognizing my pattern, but then doing something about it and becoming a new version of myself who is very unlike anyone I've been in the past. So it really is possible for every single person who's either going through a health challenge or any challenge in your life, even if it's just knowing that you're not living your best life, that you're not feeling joy, that it's been a long time since you've actually felt joy, have felt excited, have felt inspired when you woke up, instead of, many times people are waking up and immediately going into a state of anxiety or panic. That's a common thing. And I actually had one of my clients who came into my program who had decades long pattern. She had a lot of trauma in her childhood, and for decades she had been waking up every day in a state of terror and going to sleep every night, weeping, crying every night when she went to bed. And just a few weeks into my program, that's totally gone. That whole pattern is no longer a thing. And so can you imagine the different type of life she's living now? Her energy is different. She's changed who she's being in real time.
That is so beautiful. And like I said before, Bonnie, sometimes we're calling for help. And I'll use the word angels, whether you believe in angels or not. Someone is sent to you and they say, hey, there's a program, or I know something, and you ignore it.
Mm.
You ignore it. I
Mm-hmm.
want whoever is listening, if you feel inside somewhere that life could be better, of course it could be better for all of us at times. But if this message is speaking to you, then do something about it. It might be scary, but what a shift, when your nervous system is relaxed, when you know how to live every day, even when situations come up, in peace. I mean, there's no words to describe it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you had one pearl of wisdom to leave our people with, what would it be?
We all have the power when we go within. We all have the power to discover who we came here to be and to live our greatest life. And it's not dependent on what happens in our life. It's not dependent on our circumstances changing. First, we need to go first, even before our circumstances change. We need to develop the ability to be the one who chooses how we feel within our body. We are capable of choosing to feel a different emotion than our circumstances might think that that's going to cause us to feel. We can choose joy and gratitude in every moment, no matter what's going on in our life. That's what I want everyone to know.
Thank you so much, Bonnie. This was so wonderful.
You're so
And I'm so glad that we got together today.
I am too. Thank you so much, Hindy. It's been an honor and a pleasure to be a part of your podcast. And thank you to all of you who are listening. Please know that you really are the one who gets to choose. And I invite you to choose you.
Thank you, Bonnie.
Yes, you're welcome.